Well, Janice, welcome once again to another edition of our collaborative vlog. We are heading into May. I cannot believe we're 5 months into the year already. What an amazing year it has been. I think when we look back on this year, we are just going to be so surprised of the humanity in it, I think, but also that it was only 1 year. There's just been so much going on. And one of the things that we've been recently talking to people about, a lot of our clients anyway, is the upcoming graduations for many of our clients' children and grandchildren. And it's sort of a melancholy discussion because they're excited that their children and grandchildren are graduating from high school or college, but many of them are not going to experience the traditional walking the graduation line and in the same celebrations and gatherings that traditionally follow such a wonderful event in their lives. So I thought today maybe we could talk a little bit about the emotion around that and how parents and grandparents and graduates can deal with this emotion.
Mhm. I think it's a great topic. And as we discussed before, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So maybe we can just sort of dovetail those two
Yeah,
together. But
yeah.
I completely agree with you that, people having these dreams in place of, graduating and when walk down the aisle and I'm gonna, or that sounds like a wedding. But walk down the, get your name called and walk across the stage, and it's not gonna happen this year.
Yeah.
And I think, and as you and I have discussed before, I think the first step in dealing with those feelings is feeling your feelings, and there's going to be feelings of sadness and grief. And people might think that's kind of strange because usually you think about grief in terms of somebody passing away. But these are I think the word grief still very much
Mhm.
applies because we have dreams, and the
Mhm.
similar kinds of things are happening with people that are planning on getting married, and
Yeah,
they're getting
yeah.
married, but the first step is acknowledging your feelings about it, not trying to stuff them down, not trying to self-medicate them,
Mhm.
and actually feeling your feelings about it.
Yeah, I read a statistic recently that said anxiety, by measure of people taking anxiety medication, has significantly spiked since isolation started.
Hmm.
And for many of these individuals that we're talking about specifically around graduation or weddings or any of those types of celebratory events, for many of these people, I mean, I remember when I was in high school and college, my gosh, my friends were my life, right? I
Mm.
mean, career wasn't really, it was there, but they were my life. And I think about the fact that how would I have felt at that age if all of a sudden I went from hanging in the dorm room, studying, being excited about graduation to finishing my classes 100% online with, I guess, like this kind of interaction, but no partying with each other, no socializing with each other,
Mm.
no um, companionship, like in the sense of good job, patting each other on the back. I just think of all of those things that I look back on in my high school and college years and think, gosh, what if I had missed those? I mean,
Mm.
you don't know what you don't know, but at the same time, I guess I kind of grieve for those people
Mm-hmm.
because I know how much fun that last half of the semester was for my both high school and college senior year.
Sure. And that makes me think of some other things, the people that are in college right now. I mean, we all tend to kind of think about our own experience going through this COVID-19, social distancing thing, but people in college, they had to suddenly, most of them return home, so leave all those people, and then so like the social isolation that
Hmm.
goes along with that. living with your folks for a long period of time when you're not used to doing that.
Yeah.
And there's probably a good reason why you decided to go away to school. You're growing up. And then the other thing that it makes me think about is too, it's kind of like two major life events happening at the same time. So even without the COVID-19, you graduate from college. Often that's a difficult time for young people because all of a sudden, bam, I am out in the adult world. I'm no longer, I no longer have the structure of going to classes. Now I'm looking for a job. So like, what's my identity? So that is usually happening when people are graduating from college, but then add on the COVID-19 stuff. And yeah, so it really is an added stress during an already stressful time.
Yeah, not and on top of that, many of the students normally in their senior year are also job hunting.
Yes.
If, as far as college graduation, they're job hunting, or if they're going off to college, they're visiting campuses and making selections. So many people in their junior year of high school right now would be visiting a lot of the colleges, going there to to check it out just a little bit, and they can't do that right now. So when I think about those that are graduating from college and their job right now is to start looking for a job, they should be reaching out there, making those connections. We're talking this month, basically. The month of May is when they usually have a job already, or they have very good leads to jobs. And this environment has created some pause with regards to even doing that, and some challenges around that. So that is going to cause an economic impact to many of them, and the emotional impact as well. And when you talk about grieving, not finding a job is just as much as a grieving process as losing a job to a certain extent. I mean, they bring different emotions and, different parts of from ourselves, but it's still stress and anxiety.
Oh, sure. And again, I know I feel like I bring it up in every time we talk, but acknowledging those feelings, not trying to push them away. But I'm also not suggesting that you wallow in it, but acknowledging those feelings, and grieving that, like, wow, I thought that I would have that job by June or July, grieving that. But then also after you've processed those feelings, really being careful of the self-talk that you notice that you're doing. So saying things to yourself like, I never should have gone to college, or I'm never going to get a job. That feeds anxiety, and it feeds depression. It goes in a loop. And so we have to be really careful about our negative self-talk.
That's a really good point. I'm so glad you said that, because I think the opposite side of that is, okay, I'm in a unique situation. I realize that there's going to be a challenge getting a job. What can I do to start building my resume? What can I do to show future employers that even though I was graduating during a time where it was extremely unique and challenging to find a job, what did I do, understanding that I can't go out and just work anywhere, right? I have to find something that I can do socially distant. So, I was thinking about that part of it. And of course, depending on the career that you've chosen to study, there actually is a lot of opportunities online. There are many companies right now that are looking for people who can work remotely, because not everybody has that ability to do that, right? And there are companies that, like, let's say, for example, you graduated with a teaching degree. That's probably one of the most impacted college graduates right now. And not saying that others aren't. I don't want to belittle any other graduating degree, but teachers, some of them never finished their student teaching, right? So I went to college for 4 years. In my fourth year, in my senior year, I did student teaching. Well, many of them got 2 months worth of student teaching in.
Hmm.
And usually, they have a job lined up with regards to what they're going to teach. What I've been seeing is that there's a lot of online positions available for teaching. So there's programs out there that are K through 12 programs that are allowing teachers, and in some cases it's like for homeschooling type arrangements. So exploring outside your normal realm of what should I do. Another thing that I've seen, and I'm a little bit guilty of this, and only because of an interest, not because not because I'm trying to find another job, but is taking a skill set that you have and offering classes around it.
Mm.
One of my colleagues in the profession, actually, it's a slightly different profession, but same kind of females in finance idea. She's offering online web classes, Zoom classes on Microsoft Office products. So Excel, Word, sort of tricks of the trade, $29 for the class. It's a 2-hour class, and she walks you through the three major Microsoft classes, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So she's finding ways to supplement her income with these online classes. And the nice thing about her class, because you can YouTube just about anything, but the nice thing about her class is it's actually live. So people can ask questions during the education session. So think about, I guess my point is, think about the skill set that you have. If you are a teacher and you're trying to build your resume, then I know many parents out there that would love to have some supplement for their students, and many of the teachers are trying to figure this out too. How do we provide live classes to our students? But a lot is falling on the parents right now, and they'd love some supplemental instructions because they haven't been taught. As a teacher, you've been taught how to teach, and you can turn around and teach parents how to do some teaching. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So, there's other things out there that I guess I want people to take a step back and say, well, it might not be big money, but it would be something. And it certainly is going to build your resume and show your future employer that you know how to maneuver during very, very difficult and challenging times. So it's taking that self-talk that you were saying, don't turn it negative, and saying, but what can I do about it? It's those action steps that you can actually put in place.
I was also thinking about, that people have, we all have, expectations of what like the next, and before all this happened, we think about, oh, in like 6 months I'm going to be whatever, going on vacation, or somebody who's graduating from school, I'm going to be in my new job. And right now that's all very much up in the air. And so I think having a plan, not something like at 8 o'clock I'm going to do this, and at 8:15, not making yourself crazy, but having a vision, having a plan of what maybe the next 3 months is going to look like for you.
Some structure, you're saying.
Exactly. And so perhaps part of that is, okay, I'm going to pivot and see what else I can do with the skills the skill set that I have, and doing some kind of project or a small business like what you're talking about. But the other thing that I also want to say is, I think it's important, and I am very guilty of this myself, it's important not to have huge expectations of ourselves too. Because like there was a meme going around on Facebook, on social media, about like basically if you're not, like basically taking on some huge project right now, you're just wasting all this free time. Well, the reality is that we're going through an international crisis right now. And so, running in the background, like just like on a computer where there's programs running in the background that are taking up energy and taking up space, we all have that running in the background too. So it's really, really important to be realistic
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy, right? It takes a lot of
It
energy.
does. And we're
Yeah.
not even aware that
Yeah.
our minds are, we're in crisis mode. Even
Yeah.
though, you and I, we seem like we're calm and everything, in the running in the background, there's a crisis going on. So
Yeah.
um, having a plan, but having it be realistic,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I also think for those that, I think it's really important for people to understand you may feel more tired than normal.
Yes.
You may need to yeah, you can have a big project and that will help distract you a little bit, but at the same time, you may need to rest more.
Yes.
You may need to breathe more. You may need to focus on some of those things a bit more. And
Mhm.
that's been something I think because of our discussions in January, February, and March and April, I've been a bit more aware of like the breathing exercises that we went through last month. For me, they've been very beneficial because in our field, it's it's been one crisis to the next.
I bet.
So I think what I really wanted people to understand in our conversation or here today is that it's okay that you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of this. I think a lot of people are. Maybe they're not voicing it, but it is a very very challenging time. And then when we start getting into the financial side of some of this, some of those college students I was talking about, we've actually suggested that some of them were working to help them afford college or just pay some, a car bill or an insurance bill or something. We've had to coach them on applying for unemployment because that's just not something they normally would ever think to do because,
Mhm.
why would I apply for unemployment? I'm a college student. And they're still having to make that insurance payment or they're still having to make that car payment. So we've had to talk multiple layers of generations through filing for unemployment in some cases. And of course, on the student loan front, talking to them about what their options are. And that student loan aspect of things brings a whole nother level of emotion to the table because it's overwhelming as a student to look at that bill that you're walking out of college with and didn't really maybe understand when you were in the process of college, but now when you have to pay the piper, it's like, whoa, well, what do I do about that?
Mhm.
And I know I've read a lot of articles, maybe you can touch base on that just a minute, about the stress that those large college debt is bringing to the table for people.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I think the financial aspects of this crisis are they're impacting everybody, and
Yeah.
and definitely the folks that are graduating from college right now. That has got to be a really daunting thing to look at that, look at that number, and I think that again, you like process your feelings around it, like, there's going to be fear, there might be anger, there might be sadness, and then at the same time you're
Yeah.
looking what your options are, and talking to somebody like you, or going on the internet and doing research about what your options are. Did you want to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about?
I think that that's important to have a conversation about because with students that are just graduating in May, in some cases, we'll tell them to do the 6 month deferment, right? So you have 6 months after you graduate from college that you need to make a decision. Do I want to start paying or do I want to defer it, for another year, basically, or another 6 months? And so it depends on so the answer always is it depends, right? So it depends on what you're doing. In some cases, we want that clock to start ticking. So we actually tell people to go into payment status based on income-based repayments almost immediately. Because if you earned nothing last year and you're on income-based repayments, you owe nothing, right? Your payment is zero,
Oh.
but it counts. So where we see a lot of people making mistakes is if they're going into a public service job, like teaching or anything that's going to be public service, then we want that clock to start ticking today. Now, if you didn't have any earned income in 2019 and we start that clock June 1st, Well, your income-based repayment is zero. You get a whole year worth of zero payments that counts towards your public service loan repayment.
Oh, so, okay, so you're talking about people applying for those repayment plans where it's like
Right.
10 years in public service.
Right, right.
Mhm.
But even if you aren't in public service loan forgiveness and you know you're going to go for a 20 or 25-year loan forgiveness program just simply because of the career that you chose, then we want that clock ticking right away. So we want those folks to apply for their loans to go into payment status, go income-based repayment. If your income was zero, your payment was zero. So you've got at least a year under your belt of, repayment. And then if you get, or when you get a job this year, meaning 2020, it's only going to be partially, right? So you're looking at a partial year worth of income. So again, that second year of income-based repayments is pretty darn low. And even sometimes going into the third year, it's fairly low because you're at the bottom of the pay scale early on in your career. So we've got 3 years in, possibly even 4 years in, that your income is fairly on the low scale for the income-based repayment plans. You've got, if you're truly going to qualify for public service loan forgiveness, then you've got 6 years left that we'll work through. But you're getting a advance, I guess you want to say, above and beyond what most people are doing, which the default that most people are doing is to say, oh, well, I can't make the payment, so I defer it.
Mm.
And then 6 months comes along and they say, well, I still don't have a job, so I'm going to defer it again. And you've missed out, on all that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a job, if you're fortunate enough to have a job, we want you to consider making those payments right away as well, because if they're sitting there, they're potentially earning interest while you're in deferment. And that interest capitalizes the moment that you put that in payment status, meaning all of the interest that has kind of been accruing during the time that you've been in college, all of a sudden capitalizes, and now you start making payments on not just the principal, but the interest that is accrued over time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, sometimes we go to income-based payment plans simply because some of the amount of capitalization is limited with regards to that. So the answer really is it depends. The thing that we don't want you to do, it's almost like what you said before, don't put your head in the sand on it. Don't bury it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of information out there. Certainly, we, sell a little self-promotion. We have a whole section of our website that is on student loans that our financial planner and newly minted CFP, Becky Eason, writes every month. She writes an article on student loans. So there's a ton of information out there about all the income-based repayment plans. Under COVID, if you have a student loan, that interest and payment automatically is going into forbearance. So your loan right now is at 0% interest rate and you don't have to make a payment, but it's a wonderful opportunity to make a payment and have it all go to principal if you can. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a combination of private loans and government loans, the private loans didn't go into forbearance. So if you have private loans, which are usually a higher interest rate, what we're suggesting to people is take that payment that you were making on the government loans, if you can, and apply it towards the private loan. Get that private loan paid down. You have 6 months worth of payments that you can make on that private loan. If you don't have private loans, but you have other high interest rate loans for some particular, like let's say you have credit card debt. Well, typical credit card debt is somewhere around 12 to 18% interest rate. Take that money that you were paying on your student loans and pay that credit card off. Or finally, set the money aside. Like take the money that you were making in the student loans and set the money aside in an emergency fund. And now you finally have that emergency fund that you were trying to build, but just didn't have the resources to do. Mm-hmm. So we find this a huge opportunity right now to take that money that you normally would be paying on student loans and thinking about creative ways that we can either get your other debt paid down, get that debt paid down, because if that's your only debt, then you are making 100% interest, 100% principal payments on those student loans. And if you have a variety of student loans that have a variety of interest rates, of course, we're saying take the highest interest rate loan that you have in that mix and apply it, towards the total payment towards that one. And in some cases, we're able to pretty much pay off that higher student loan, the one with the higher interest rate, at zero right now. So there's a lot of different options between, what people have available to them right now that can help with some of the emotional overwhelm with student loans.
The thing that you said about not putting our heads in the sand, I think that I really like that, because I mean that applies to so many things, and it definitely, like with emotions, finances, career, we get overwhelmed and we can either like self-medicate, stick our head in the ground, pretend like it's not happening, or take drugs and alcohol or whatever your substance of choice is, gambling, and kind of cover it up and stick our heads in the sand. Or we can feel our feelings and come up with a plan to move forward. And I think that having a plan for your finances and how you're going to deal with your school loans, I think is a great plan or great idea. And then also in terms of your mental health, so having a plan on how you're going to deal with times when you're feeling sad, grief, anger, and and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but like putting some meditation into your life, reaching out to friends, figuring out how you can maybe volunteer in your community, things like that are going to help your mental health a lot.
And speaking, you mentioned it earlier. I want to make sure that we give some time today to talk about the fact that this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And, as I mentioned earlier, I've seen some studies that have said that there has been a large uptick in relapses with people that have in the past come up with ways to cope with their mental health and their anxiety. And this has caused a lot of anxiety because people don't know. I mean, they don't know. They might be working from home right now, but they don't know if their company is going to continue to do that. They don't know. They're feeling very isolated. And I've read numerous studies about senior citizens and that isolation effect and how that really affects their anxiety level and depression levels. So I think it's fitting that we really give some credence to the fact that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that there are some really good resources, including people like you, Janice, that can help us when we are experiencing that. This is one thing that I want to make sure, and I did a podcast several years ago with a great friend of mine, Raquel Hinman, and she was on a board for an organization that does focus on mental health of the homeless. And one of the things that we talked about at great lengths was that this disease, this illness, is viewed as almost shameful. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be, but when somebody has cancer, they're like, oh, wow, what are they going to do about that? Are they going to get treatment? How are they going to fight that? We're here for you. We're praying for you. You got this. And yet when somebody is diagnosed with a mental illness or has some anxiety, it's brushed off often as, oh, it's all in your head.
Yeah, and even sometimes even the most loving partner, friend can kind of accidentally do that. Like, so somebody discloses that, like, wow, my anxiety is so bad, I can't even sleep. And they'll say, well, what do you have to be anxious about? Or what do you have to be depressed about? Come on, you've got 3 lovely kids, or you have a beautiful house. And it really is negating the person's feelings. And like, however you're feeling right now, is normal. I'm just going to tell you,
It's your
like,
normal.
yeah, I mean, it's a normal human condition to go through periods of time where you're depressed or you're anxious. There's no shame in it. I go to counseling myself. Pow, there. I'll say it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not ashamed in the slightest. It's been a very helpful part of my life. And so, when we've talked a lot about these different feelings that you might have, like a day where you're feeling sad and then you're able to work through that, and the next day you're feeling better,
Mm-hmm.
or you're like overcome with fear or anxiety someday.
Mm-hmm.
When you really need to start taking note of it is if you're finding like you literally can't get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to, you don't have enough energy to get breakfast on for your kids. You're finding that your anxiety is so bad you can't sleep. When people get really depressed, it's not uncommon to have thoughts of self-harm, and maybe not even having a plan, but just like I wish I could just not wake up tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're having feelings like that, that's when it's really important to get the support of a therapist. But I also, like with the things going on right now, even if you're not, having days where you can't get out of bed, right now might not be a bad time to check in with a therapist to get some additional support. We all need additional support right now. And I wanted to give some resources in the community. So there is, in New York State, there's a COVID-19 emotional support hotline
Oh, great.
number. And I'll give the number, but I'll give the info to you, and you can put it in the show notes.
Show
But
notes,
that's
yeah.
but that's 1-844-863-9314. And what's really cool about that is, like, if you just feel like you're at your wit's end, it's up to here. You can talk to they're volunteers, but they're all licensed mental health professionals.
Wow.
And like so many people volunteered. I think it's like, I don't know, something like 6,000 licensed mental health professionals in New York signed up to do that. There were so many, like I signed up for it, and they already had enough people for the time being. Yeah, it's amazing. So that resource is there. That's 24/7.
Wow.
And then also there's suicide prevention hotline, which is, let me see. You know what? That one, let's put in the show notes because I'm
Okay.
not. Nope, I got it.
Okay.
1-800-273-8255. But again,
Okay.
that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to reach out. Just don't. I mean, and if you're feeling better, then you're going to be a better partner. You're going to be a better mom or better dad. Please don't be ashamed.
Yeah, I mean, I've witnessed it firsthand because people on our team, they have young kids, and some of them have teenagers as well. And the change in our company has always been flexible, will always be flexible, but the change in their day, I mean, they're pretty amazing warriors, I would call them, because they're hopping from their kids are used to seeing them as mom and dad, not working mom and dad, right? So when they're at home, the kids are like, well, mom and dad is home. Like, why would I have to be quiet? Or why would I have to do this? Or why would I have to do that? So we're seeing it. Parents are doing the best they can to work through it. And it's, I mean, one thing I can say, I think that has come out of this with regards to that is that we get a glimpse in people's lives differently in this situation because we are seeing what it's like at home for them. We are seeing the challenges directly. Like people can tell me until they're blue in the face what it's like to have two children, middle school children, and the demands that it takes. But I'm actually seeing it from Kate Welker, one of our other certified financial planners. She's got two middle-aged kids, and they are middle school age kids, and their teachers are amazing. The things that they're doing are amazing, but they still need help.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's still mom and dad that has to come and help them with things. And, Kate and I can be in the middle of a conference call with a client, and all of a sudden one of the kids just, even though they've been told, one of the kids will just walk up and say, Mom, I need help on something,
Mm-hmm.
and clients have been wonderful to understand. And they're like, oh, she's so cute, or he's so cute, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for Kate, that adds a high level of stress to her
Mm-hmm.
because she feels very torn, and I have always given her credit for somebody who, when she was at work, she was at work, and when she was a mom, she was a mom. Like, she always was able to kind of, do that very well. And right now she's always at work and she's always a mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very challenging. And for those folks that are going through that, I have such appreciation, first of all. But I know that it's creating some unusual anxiety above and beyond what normally a working parent experiences. So it's not just college graduates, it's not just people that are working from home that have never worked from home.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this unique blend that is existing,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, how can you not have
Mm-hmm.
anxiety? Like, I want to meet that person that has figured that one out, because I
Right.
haven't
Right.
yet.
Exactly. Like this, I think this is universal. If people haven't had a dark night of the soul during this, I question if they're being honest, because I don't know how you could not. I don't know how you could not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Janice, thank you once again. I think it's so important that our college and high school graduates and their families understand that uh, this is a very unique time for them, not just because they don't get to walk for graduation, but also because they're looking for jobs or going off to colleges, or maybe not going off to colleges their freshman year. Who knows what this is going
Mm-hmm.
to look like?
Mm-hmm.
That in and of itself, that lack of uncertainty, is really very unique for that group. And I think we often forget about what they might, we think they're young and resilient, and we often forget about what they might be going through right now too. And it's important for us to be thinking about them, and having conversations with them
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about that. I know it's going to be like, oh, mom, I'm fine, or oh, dad, I'm fine. But my guess is that underneath that facade, there is some sadness, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. They need to know that it's okay to feel it.
Exactly.
So thank you
Exactly.
for taking the time to talk through that with us. And I know it's a little bit more time than we normally spend for our video blogs each month, but I think this was a very important topic, and I look forward to anybody's questions. Janice and I always want to know what questions you might have. We look forward to them. We'd be happy to answer them. Anytime that you guys have questions, please go ahead and send it to info@rootedpg.com. You can also post the questions out on Facebook when we post this. We'll post this in our video blog section, as well as when we do the podcast recording of it. Anything that you want to know, we want to cover these topics so that you have a good resource to go to, because sometimes the problem with the internet is there's too much information out on the
Mm-hmm.
internet.
Mm-hmm.
So
And can I add one thing?
you certainly can.
Um, one thing that we didn't talk about is that most therapists right now are observing social distancing. So,
Yes, so reach out to
yeah,
them.
so yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we're all most of us are doing we're doing online therapy. So
great.
it would look like a lot like what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
which I think is wonderful. Sometimes I know I have a coach, which I kind of quasi call her my therapist at times too.
Hmm.
In one of the sessions we had recently, she asked how I was doing, and I just said, I just want to touch a person. Like,
Hmm.
yes, I have my husband and I can give him a hug, but it's, yes, I have a lot of video meetings, but I usually pepper that when I'm down in Florida with some face to face meetings too. And
Hmm.
I just want to touch a person. Like I want to
Mm-hmm.
give somebody a hug,
I know.
almost like a perfect stranger. Like
I
you look
know.
like you're having a bad day. Let me give you a hug,
Right.
And I said, I'm fortunate because I have my husband that I can talk to and that I do have some physical presence next to. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I'm still feeling very isolated.
Yes.
And she provided me with a couple of suggestions. She said, well, host like a Zoom happy hour, which was fun. It was fun to do that.
Yeah.
She suggested maybe doing like Google Chats with my nephews and, family or friends or whatever. And she said, take advantage of the fact that you have that husband and just go sit out, and hold hands for, 10 or 15 minutes in the middle of the day and, kind of make sure that you are recognizing that you do have that. And it got me thinking about the fact that, gosh, how lucky am I that I have somebody that I can reach out to and physically touch? There are a lot of people out there that don't. And
Yes.
that led me down this whole other path of discussion about some of our clients that have lost their spouses and
Yeah.
how, what does that feel like? Because if I'm feeling this way and I actually have a person next to me, what is it like if if I had kids and they couldn't come see me and I didn't have a spouse and my sisters or my brothers couldn't come see me, like
Mm-hmm.
what would that be like? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
technology challenged, so whole other path to go down and explore. But it was very interesting, her asking that one question, and all of a sudden I was like, talking about all of my clients, and it made me start picking up the phone and making some phone calls and asking how they were doing and how appreciative they were. I guess to circle back to your comment about people that are watching this, if they feel alone and they feel isolated and they have a lot of anxiety, that resource is there because many of the therapists are offering this sort of counseling session where you can
Mm-hmm.
do video or phone or whatever it might be. And we're definitely going to have your contact information. Well, we had it in the intro, and we're definitely going to have it in the show notes and at the end of this video as well. So thank you for bringing that topic up. I think it's really important
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, everybody, please send us your questions. Janice and I want to know what questions you might have in the future, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on this particular session.